Hello everybody, Hate the Blogger Guy here. It is December 3rd and time for another Christmas reading. If it is your first time visiting my channel, why don't you hit that subscribe button. While you're at it, ring that bell and that'll notify you anytime I put out any kind of new video. So we are going to continue our Christmas readings, and tonight's a fun book. Tonight is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty. Alright, here we go. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas. The whole Christmas season now. Please don't ask why. No one is quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may be that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour Grinch frown. At the warm light lit windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging mistletoe wreaths. And there hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer, "Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here." Then he growled, with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, "I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming." For tomorrow he knew it. All the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush to their toys. And then, oh, the noise. Oh, the noise, 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 noise. There's one thing he hated. The noise, 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 noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast. And they'd feast. And they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding, on rare Who roast beef, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall, the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, sing, sing. And the more the Grinch thought of the Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why? For 43 years, I've put up with it now. It must stop the Christmas from coming. But how? And then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderfully awful idea. I know just what to do. The Grinch laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and chuckled. What the great Grinch trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around. But since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sled, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up." The sled started down towards the homes of the Who's. Lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without a care. Then he came to the first little house on the square. This is stop number 1, the old Grinch Claus hissed, as he climbed to the roof, emptied the bag in his fist. And he slid down the chimney. Forgive me, my nose is stuffed up. A rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two, and then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. There's these stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slid and slunk, with a smile most unpleasant, around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop gun, a bicycle, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in the bag, and then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Oh, the darn pages. And he slunk to the icebox. He took the Woo feast. He took the Woo pudding. He took the roast beef. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, the Grinch even took the last can of Woo hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee, and now grinned the Grinch. I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like a coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by a tiny Woo daughter who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why? But you know, the old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little tot, the fake Santa Claus lied. There's a light on the tree that won't light on one side, so I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here. And his fib fooled the child. And then he patted her on the head and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went back to bed with her cuppa, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but a hook and some wire. And one speck of food he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he took the same thing to the other Woo houses, leaving crumbs much too small for those other Who mice. It was 1:15. All the Who's still in a bed, all the Who's still snoozing. Then he packed up the sleigh, picked it up with their presents, the ribbons and wrappings, the tags and the tassels, the trimmels and tappings. "3,000 feet up on the side of Mount Crump, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh, pooh to the Woos, said the Grinchishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did. He heard a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, and then started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, and then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without their presence. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, and bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. And then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, didn't come from stores. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he wheezed with a loud thought, the bright morning light. And he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he oh my goodness. That page won't let go. He himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beef. All right, I hope you enjoyed that one. I know I always do. So we're ready to close it off. And until we see each other again tomorrow, bye-bye.